Good morning, friends. This is Reverend Toni Boehm, Unity Ministry Skills Consultant for the Unity South Central region. And it's my privilege to bring you skill sets that will enhance your team, enhance your board, enhance your ministry. And for all of you also to know that as part of the region, I am available. The region pays for all of my travel expenses to come to your ministry and to support you. And like this, we also can do Zoom classes together. So let me know, and at the end, I will give you my contact information. So today we're going to talk about spiritual emotional maturity. This is just one of my favorite subjects, spiritual emotional maturity. According to Cindy Wigglesworth, spiritual intelligence, Cindy has said that we have done a great job of spiritually awakening people, but we have not done a great job of spiritually maturing them. So spiritual awakening means that we have invited people into knowing and understanding that they are in unity language, that Christ's presence, that they are one with the one, that they are evolving out of victim. However, what we've done a good job on is evolving them out of victim, starting to take responsibility. But in that responsibility, many have gotten stuck in me, my. So now it becomes whatever I want, whatever I need, what I. Mr. Fillmore calls that, the co-founder of Unity, Charles Fillmore, he calls that the adverse ego. When we get stuck in the me, and the my, and the mine, and you have to do this for me, and even though I'm over being a victim of the world, you're still somewhat responsible for me, and not taking full accountability for our own growth. And I have to know this, and I have to know that, and I demand that you tell me this. And we really get to the point that we think that what we say, what we think, we give it great meaning, and that we give that meaning, that meaning matters a lot. So that's the foundation. Whereas really what we want to be doing now, moving into spiritual maturity. And I'm going to talk today about what that means as effective behavior for teams. What spiritual emotional maturity means as effective behavior for teams. I'm going to go back to Charles Fillmore, because he says the adverse ego is that which keeps us stuck in the muck and mire of materiality when we could be soaring in the heavens of spirituality. And that muck and mire of materiality are those moments, friends, when we give great meaning to me, I must have it my way, this is my agenda. Oh, you said something to me, it hurt me, and now I don't feel safe. Those are all part of what we must spiritually mature if we're going to be moving out of third dimensional consciousness into higher levels of fourth and fifth dimensional awareness. Not from a woo-woo perspective, but from a very clear progression of soul evolution in what I've started to call a soul mastery perspective. We are on a journey to soul mastery, of maturing that adverse ego, bringing it into full maturation so that we can ascension, Jesus' ascension is part of the story. Whether it happened or not, it doesn't matter. It's part of the soul evolution so that we can ascend into new levels of awareness about who we are, how we show up. As for me, I want to play on the leading edge. And I'm willing to dance at the edge of mystery. I'm willing to receive feedback, because that's the place where the growth occurs. So let's talk about those behaviors that support effective team in regards to spiritual and emotional maturity. So in the small ego orientation, the small ego, the adverse ego, takes things personally and is easily offended and easily provoked. And in maturity, the mature aspect of this is when we can practice self-observation and self-regulation, meaning I can say, oh, this is interesting. Look at this that is arising, this feeling, this emotion that's arising in me, without giving it great meaning, just noticing, being the witness to the idea that it is arising. Because if you can witness it, you don't have to be it. And you can say, oh, this is interesting. That's the mature piece. It's interesting that this is arising. I'm practicing self-observation. I'm seeing it. I'm being the witness to it and going, so what's more interesting? That's the self-regulation part. Opening that frontal cortex through a question that is so powerful. What's more interesting here? What's more interesting than getting upset? What's more interesting as I look at what does this mean to me for my spiritual growth? So that's that first part of behaviors that affect teams. The second one in spiritual emotional maturity is the idea of being what I like to call conscious neutrality, the presence of all is well, a non-anxious presence in the midst of whatever is happening. Even a very tough board meeting where lots of energies are arising. I like to just think about those moments where energies are arising as an energetic puzzle that has popped a piece. And it's only popped a piece because it wants to change the picture. So that when we're willing to look at that from a spiritually emotional mature and be that space, that state of being of conscious neutrality, then again, we're not taking things personally. We're not reacting to the situation. We have the capacity to respond from the higher level of source energy that we are. So this idea of practicing self-observation, practicing self-regulation, being conscious neutrality, that non-anxious presence. The next spiritual emotional behavior that supports teams is when we stand as resilience and flexibility. When we go into meetings and we're firm and we think we know, oh, I know that I know and I'm not getting off of this. There's no negotiation there. There's no flexibility. There's no resilience. And resilience and flexibility become the cornerstone of spiritual maturity. Because in spiritual maturity, you must learn to dance at the edge of mystery, to dance in the midst of the unknown and allow the questions to arise. And in allowing questions to arise, answers will arise, but we don't stop at the answers. We allow the answers to call forth the next question. So that idea of resiliency and flexibility. In spiritual emotional maturity, we learn to communicate at a different level and from almost a different perspective. We communicate with authenticity, the courage to speak our truth, to really not play small or meek, but to speak with authenticity and with strength and with the capacity to know that we are being heard. With spiritual emotional maturity, we are willing to be collaborative. We move out of the small ego of my way or the highway into a consciousness of I want to be a collaborative space in the universe for regardless of what is happening. I want to seek input from others around decisions. I just don't want to be the only decision maker because I believe that it's my way or the highway, or even that I know best for you. That's all the adverse ego. In spiritual emotional maturity, we live from a perspective of wanting clarity and yet being able to focus and be intentional. We want to be clear in our thoughts and be able to focus and be intentional so that we can make the best decisions. In this, we're willing to be risk takers, and we're willing then to make decisions not knowing 100% what might come out of this, but having looked at what might be the unintended consequences and moving on anyways. That's spiritual emotional maturity versus being defensive and fearful because, oh, I just don't have enough information. Well, guess what? We might never have enough information because there's so much information coming down the pike. The next is willing to be self-motivated. I don't need you to motivate me because I am self-motivated because I know I'm enough. In small adverse ego, we don't know we're enough. So we're always looking outside ourselves for something to motivate us. But when we know that we are enough, we can be self-motivated. We can take those actions that move us to the next level. And as I mentioned before, we're also risk takers, and we're not afraid to take risks. You know, in business, and this is how, when I was in the business arena and working and a director in many places and vice president in others, I knew the people that reported to me were going to make mistakes. How did I know that? Because I made mistakes. And I had a great boss in one place who was always, when a mistake was made, would just say, use it to learn and move on. Use it to learn and move on. Use it to learn and move on. And that's what we have to do. Use it to learn and move on. Another sign of spiritual maturity is the willingness to unlearn everything we thought we knew. In spiritual maturity, we're willing to know that we don't know rather than wanting to know that we do know. Now, you might have to chew on that for a moment. Willing to know that we don't know. And that's been one of my saving graces as a consultant, is I come in knowing I don't know. I have a lot of information. I don't know what's going to happen in the midst of this room. I don't know what's going to happen in the midst of this collaborative effort of all of these consciousnesses coming together. But here's what I do know. There's a wisdom in the room, and I trust it. There's a wisdom in the room, and I trust it. And in that, you learn to understand the we versus the I. Whether it's me coming as a consultant, whether it's you all sitting as a table, that we're there as the we, the collective we of the ministry, not as the ones who have all the answers. When we're in spiritual emotional maturity, we are positive and solution oriented. Positive and solution oriented. We put that negative orientation and fear on the back burner and move forward. And we negotiate solutions and work well with others, possibility oriented and permission giving. So there, friends, are a few of the behaviors of spiritual and emotionally mature teams, people, persons that arise when these factors are in place, these dynamics are in place. And when these dynamics are in place, when people are spiritually, emotionally mature, now you've got a team that is going to be truly effective within your organization, within your ministry, within your systems. So these are behaviors that support effective teams through spiritual and emotional maturity. My name is Reverend Toni Boehm. It is my pleasure to be the ministry consultant for the Unity South Central. You can reach me at 816-304-3044. 816-304-3044, or revtboehm@aol.com, revtboehm@aol.com. And please don't hesitate to call. Have a great day. Enjoy.